exit tickets.
Yes.
What went really well with these?
What went really well, a lot of the kids were able to read the graphs accurately. But I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Howard did a much better job of using the graph like a ruler and plotting the data on the number line.
Yeah.
But not a lot went well. But I wasn't a big fan of this. I wasn't a big fan of this exit ticket because the lesson was we created scale bar graphs, and they should, out of creating it, be able to read it. But I don't know.
Yeah, that was my question as well. If the objective was create a scaled bar graph, they didn't actually have to do that on this exit ticket. So
they didn't have to fill in the scale or anything.
Right.
They didn't have to do any of that. So I wasn't a huge fan of this exit ticket, but I was even like, I was disappointed in, like, they're adding, like, just going back to, like, basic adding skills, because so many of them just got that wrong.
Yeah. So which question do you think is most important to focus on then, given that the exit ticket doesn't necessarily match the objective that you taught? So which do you want to discuss, A or B?
I'd rather discuss B, because I feel like that matches it. In creating the bar graph, they definitely better be able to read it. And the plotting it, the data on the number line was like such a small part of the overall lesson. That was like 10% of the lesson.
Yep.
So yeah, B.
Okay. What percent of kids do you think got B correct, roughly?
When I went through, that's what I was just looking at. Like, I did mark like how many kids mastered the number line one, but with just the second, I got 50%.
Okay.
50% mastered it.
Yeah, that was super close. I had a little bit lower, but at first I was looking at A and B, and then I was like, I think we should just look at B.
Yeah, and then a lot of it, quite a few of the ones that like didn't, it was like an addition error. Not quite a few. Probably like of the kids that missed it. I think probably like 5 or 6. It was an addition error. A couple were they just add them all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 3 or 4, they just added them all together. And then some of them just didn't do it. But that was like,
I didn't see many that seemed truly confused in terms of gathering data from the bar graph. Like, they all could pull out how much was butter pecan, how much was vanilla, but they were, as you're saying, adding either all of them together or not choosing the correct 3 or adding wrong.
There were only 2 that I was that I did, like, Camila pulled out 22 plus 22 plus 22.
Oh, yeah, and I think Teresa had a 22
And
as well.
Teresa had a 22, right here. Nyla has a 22, which which confused me, but I know where they got it from, and that whenever we were going over how to make the bar graph, I talked about 22 because we were talking about, like, if our scale, like, say we're making it out of 10s, but our data is like 27, we need to be able to, like, estimate that. And I used 22 as an example. So, like, if we had a scale of 5, but like 22 was one of our data points, how would we show that?
Yep. Okay, so that makes sense. So they were using too much knowledge from the lesson versus what was actually on the exit ticket, it sounds like. Okay. That makes sense. So do you think there's one big misconception that left only 50% at mastery for question B?
No. It was a series of, like, small errors.
Okay. Given that they're at 50%, what's your plan for reteach for this one? Or not like this specific question, but being able to write a numbered sentence about gathering information from a scaled bar graph.
Like, the biggest thing I've, like, done, and, like, something I've really tried to model is, like, so many of them will just try and put, like, 3 or 4 add-ins in, like, a vertical algorithm, which I, like, harp on all the time. Like, don't, like if it's like 3 data points you're gonna look at, add 2 of them, then add that product with it. Because that was one of, like, seriously, one of the biggest mistakes I saw, just like those addition errors. And then making sure to like even underline like the data points you need to look at. Because again, a lot of them would like a couple, or not a lot, but a couple of them just added all 4 of them.
Yeah.
Instead of reading the question and seeing that, you know, butter pecan, vanilla, and chocolate, not all 4.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. Did anyone do that? Like underline or circle what they needed? Did someone label? Do I remember?
Someone did.
What is that?
Paris labeled hers.
Okay.
So I thought that, yeah.
So that could be even a good one to show, hey, Paris did this great thing on her exit ticket.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good.
And use it as like the Paris method. Okay. Nope. Cameron had a great solution sent.
DeKayla, like that's what DeKayla at least like it, like she like that could be another like way to maybe check it, like make sure they like answer the question, because she wrote 110 students voted for butter pecan, vanilla, and chocolate.
Perfect.
Kind of like reinforcing that those are the 3 that we're looking at.
So flipping the question. Basically.
Again, Trinity, 110 students voted for butter pecan, vanilla, and chocolate.
Another thing that I saw was write a number sentence to show the total number of students. A lot of them didn't write a number sentence. They just, to your point, did like 3 mini addition problems, but they never wrote their full number sentence, which technically would not earn them a point as well. So it goes back to that reading the directions that we have discussed.
That's one thing 3rd graders don't like, the 3 directions.
Read the directions. Okay. So I'm hearing you say getting them to focus on which data points the question's actually asking by underlining or circling, and then writing them back in their answer to make sure they answered it. Great. In thinking about the lesson, what did you think went really well?
I mean, I love teaching like data and graphing, because I think it's like kind of a natural hook for kids. So like I love that they get like, I think what goes really well, or what really well, is that they're engaged the entire time, like, because they get to draw and kind of do their own thing. I think they really caught on. They caught on with like, they were really good about labeling like the scale, and they did a great job of like, they were good at reading it, like they're good at reading the data.
Yeah, that connects to this of they all knew what was what, besides the 22.
It sometimes, again, and I noticed it with Sydney, I think I was more concerned with like, it was hard for them to like, again, just like think of it like, kind of like, there's still numbers that you can manipulate. Like I asked, like, what if you, what was the question? It was pretty much like where they double one data point.
Okay. I remember you asked something about if they lost 3 fish, but
that was it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that one, that was, if you take away 3 fish from the 25, to them that was like 3 intervals.
Yeah. Yep.
Not just 3 fish.
Yeah. Yep, that makes sense. So what would you do differently if you were reteaching the lesson?
I mean, I feel like a visual is the best, more visual than a graph, but like something to show that it's still just 25. I guess maybe even just show maybe show hash marks with like smaller hash marks within the bigger square unit,
So they know how
to
many.
show like, no, it's still just, they're still like individual numbers. So I think they're just bundling those 5s together and thinking like, that's the only way a 5 can
Be shown? Yeah, I have the language you used. I typed it.
Yeah, because I would like to see that, like.
Oh, maybe I did I not show you on the Teach Boost feedback this morning?
No.
Great.
No, you didn't.
Okay. I wrote it. I will send it out. Okay. So you said, what if she bought 3 fish from tank C? I want you to write a number sentence that represents how many fish are in tank C. And most of them took away 3 groups of 5. And so 25 minus 15, there are 10 fish left. You said the numbers are not changing. She didn't buy 3 groups of 5 fish. If there's 25 fish, she bought 3 of them only, and there's 22 remaining. Now, how would we represent that on our graph? Can we represent 22 in our graph? So you're totally right. That's where the 22 came from. Okay. Thinking about this exit ticket and the questions that were asked, is there anything you would do differently in the lesson?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to like that, like even though the scale moves at 5, the numbers still act like numbers.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe even like I said, showing that with like a little hat, like on here the scale is 0 to 10, but like showing that like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like
Doing that visual early.
doing that visual early.
Yeah. When I looked at this lesson plan, oh, so many papers. I brought you a copy. There were so many problems in the problem set, and you spent about 22 minutes making the graph on their template first for like the concept development, which I thought was great. You were super clear in terms of making sure the data from the table always matches the data in the scaled bar graph, making that really clear, making sure students know there always has to be a title, there always has to be labels, and there always has to be a scale. I was wondering if you just had almost like a checklist moving forward, so that instead of having to like pull that out of them, or of what are we missing now, what are